Most people believe Rome fell because it was invaded, because barbarians crossed the borders, because the legions were no longer strong enough, because emperors became weak. That explanation is comforting. It puts the blame outside the system. But Rome was not destroyed by enemies. It was dismantled from within, by its own money system. By the time Rome faced serious invasions, the empire was already financially exhausted, still standing, still armed, but no longer functioning as a system. The collapse did not begin with war. It began with currency. At its peak, Rome controlled the most advanced economic structure the ancient world had ever seen. A unified tax system, standardized coinage, massive trade networks stretching from Britain to Egypt, roads, ports, warehouses, and markets operating under one authority. The Roman army was powerful, but it was not independent. It depended entirely on money. Soldiers were paid salaries, supplies were purchased, logistics were funded. The legions were a financial institution in armor, and when the money failed, the armor meant nothing. Early Roman money worked because it was honest. The denarius was silver, real silver. The aureus was gold, real gold. These coins were trusted not because Rome demanded trust, but because the metal itself had value. Merchants accepted Roman coins across borders. Taxes collected in coin held purchasing power. Soldiers knew their pay would still matter months later. Trust created efficiency. Efficiency enabled expansion. Rome understood one core rule early on: expansion must pay for itself. Conquered territories provided land. Land produced taxes. Taxes funded infrastructure. Infrastructure supported armies. As long as Rome expanded, the system stayed balanced. But conquest is not infinite, and Rome refused to accept that limit. By the 2nd century, expansion slowed. There were no more rich territories left to conquer, no massive new silver mines, no endless supply of slaves. But Rome's costs kept rising. The army grew larger. Borders became harder to defend. The bureaucracy expanded. The capital demanded constant grain shipments and entertainment. Rome's lifestyle had outgrown its income, and instead of shrinking, it improvised. The first compromise was subtle. Reduce the silver content of coins. Same denomination, same appearance, same imperial face. Less metal. The public barely noticed at first. That was the danger. Because debasement works best when people still trust the system. Debasement allowed Rome to mint more coins without acquiring more silver. It solved immediate problems. Soldiers got paid. Officials received salaries. Projects continued. But something invisible had changed. Money no longer represented stored value. It represented authority. And authority cannot replace scarcity. As more debased coins entered circulation, prices rose. Merchants adjusted. Wages lagged. Confidence weakened. So Rome debased again. Each round of debasement created short-term relief and long-term instability. Rome was spending tomorrow's trust to survive today. By the 3rd century, the denarius was nearly worthless. Silver content dropped below 5%. Coins became copper with a silver coating. Gold disappeared from circulation. Elites hoarded precious metals. Ordinary people were stuck with collapsing currency. This is a critical moment in every monetary collapse. When good money vanishes and bad money dominates, Rome had crossed that line. Inflation accelerated. Prices no longer made sense. Long-distance trade slowed. Markets began rejecting imperial coinage. Barter returned. This was not progress backward. It was system failure. Money had stopped functioning as money. The state panicked. Instead of restoring trust, it tried to enforce control. Price ceilings were introduced. Wages were fixed by law. Punishments for profiteering were brutal. Emperor Diocletian attempted to freeze the economy in place. It failed, because you cannot command belief. You can only destroy it faster. As money collapsed, taxation became more aggressive. Rome demanded payment in goods instead of coin, grain, oil, livestock, labor. Farmers were tied to their land to guarantee tax collection. Professions became hereditary. Mobility vanished. Economic life hardened into obligation. Rome had not stabilized the system. It had locked it. Administration expanded to enforce this rigidity. More officials, more record-keeping, more coercion. But bureaucracy consumes resources. Rome was spending enormous effort just to collect diminishing returns. The system was feeding on itself. The army felt the consequences immediately. Pay was delayed. Bonuses disappeared. Supplies became inconsistent. Soldiers lost loyalty, not ideologically, but financially. So Rome adapted, not strategically, desperately. Foreign mercenaries were recruited. Barbarian federates were settled within the empire, not because Rome trusted them, because Rome could no longer afford a citizen army. Service became transactional. Fight for pay, not for Rome. Civil wars multiplied. Each general promised higher wages. Each contender minted more debased currency. Each victory accelerated inflation. Rome entered a feedback loop. Money collapse caused instability. Instability required spending. Spending required more debasement. There was no exit. The Eastern Roman Empire responded differently. It restructured taxation, stabilized gold coinage, protected trade routes. The solidus, a high-purity gold coin, restored trust. The East survived another 1,000 years. The West did not. Same enemies, same legacy, different money management. By the 5th century, Western Rome was hollow. Cities shrank, roads decayed, trade networks fractured. When invasions came, resistance was minimal. Not because Rome lacked soldiers, but because people no longer believed the empire was worth defending. That is the final stage of collapse. Withdrawal. Rome did not fall in a dramatic moment. It unwound, quietly, administratively, predictably. Money failed first. Everything else followed. This is why Rome still matters. Not because of its battles, but because of its balance sheets. Because monetary discipline is not optional for empires. It is survival. Every empire that abandons sound money eventually reaches the same point. Debasement, inflation, control, collapse. Different language, same mechanism. Rome did not lose its empire on the battlefield. It lost it at the mint. When money became political instead of economic. When trust was replaced by decree. When short-term survival replaced long-term stability. The army was never the problem. The system was on. By the time the army failed, the empire was already gone. If this video woke you up, drop a like and subscribe. New forbidden truth every single day. Turn on notifications, the next one might save your wealth. Comment the one thing you're doing right now to prepare. I read every single one.